So you bought the DJI FPV drone, and now you're thinking about switching to traditional FPV, and you might be wondering what changes will that come with? Well, this video is meant to guide you. Also, if you're thinking about just skipping the DJI FPV drone altogether and jumping straight into traditional FPV, this video is also meant for you. This is the iFlight Nazgul Evoque F5, meaning that it has 5-inch props, and it is perfect for so many reasons. Also, it has glowing LEDs at the bottom. Yeah, I'm easily impressed. So there are 4 areas of comparison that we're gonna discuss, which includes camera quality, safety, flyability and durability is sort of one category, and then finally batteries. And I'm gonna leave timestamps below so you guys can jump into whatever category interests you the most. So first off, let's start with the camera quality. Now you're gonna notice I have a GoPro mount on my DJI FPV drone, and that's because whenever I fly with this drone, I actually mount a GoPro on it. Similarly, the Nazgul Evoque F5 also mounts a GoPro, but that doesn't mean that the camera quality for these two drones is the same. The DJI FPV drone is not actually meant to have a GoPro on it. This is a third-party attachment. The DJI FPV drone has a native camera built into it, which is meant to be used as the recording and the vision camera at the same time. Now, the reason that I don't use this main camera to record all my footage when flying the DJI FPV drone is that, well, it sucks. It's literally a potato. And don't let anyone convince you otherwise. This camera is not good. Also, the DJI FPV drone, like I mentioned earlier, is not meant to have a GoPro mounted on top of it. It really affects the flyability aspect of this drone, which we're gonna talk about a little bit later on in this video. But based on all these circumstances and what a hassle it is to mount a GoPro on it and all the risks that you take, I think the camera quality department really easily goes to the Nazgul Evoque F5. Now let's jump into safety, and we'll start with the Nazgul Evoque F5. And in terms of safety features, well, this drone doesn't have any. This is a fully manual FPV drone. And on the other hand, the DJI FPV drone actually has a ton of safety features built in. And these safety features are the #1 reason that I actually recommend to beginners that they start on the DJI FPV drone, because these safety features can really help you out if you ever get in a tough situation. And some of these safety features include 2 front-facing obstacle avoidance sensors, which are activated in normal mode. There's also an emergency brake on this drone, so if you're ever flying and you start to panic, you can hit that button and the drone will come to a screeching halt and actually self-hover. And it also has GPS self-hovering, meaning that you don't have to do this manually. It also has automatic return to home, meaning that if you ever lose connection to this drone while flying, it's actually automatically just going to fly back to you. Now, this is a huge issue with the Nazgul Evoque, because if you ever lose connection to this drone, well, it's literally just gonna fall out of the sky. The DJI FPV drone also has automatic GPS lock takeoff and landing, meaning that you can flip this into normal mode and just land it and take off like a regular DJI drone, which is a huge plus because when you fly manual FPV, you actually have to manually land, meaning that you need to get as close to the ground as possible, lower your hover speed, and kill the motors so the drone drops to the ground. Now, you don't have to do any of this with a DJI FPV drone, which I think is actually a huge convenience. So I don't think there's much debate in this category. The safety features and the safety category easily goes to the DJI FPV drone. Next up, let's talk about durability and flyability. Now, I've crashed the DJI FPV drone an approximate 3 times when I was still learning to fly, and it held up really well. It didn't break anywhere, not even the props, but this drone is not really meant to take a beating. You can feel that the parts are not the sturdiest when you hold it. In comparison, the Nazgul Evoque F5 is built like a tank. You can really feel the difference when you hold this drone in your hand, and you know that this drone is meant to take a real beating. Also, the entire lower body is made of carbon fiber, so you know that that's some really strong stuff. Like, I would not be afraid to hit gaps with this drone, and even if I messed up, I know it's gonna survive no problem. I wouldn't recommend that anybody try to hit gaps with a DJI FPV drone, especially tight ones, because if you break this drone, you can't really fix it yourself. You have to send it into DJI to repair for you, whereas this is something you can repair yourself. In terms of flyability, you can really tell that the design of the DJI FPV drone is really bulky, so it doesn't cut through the air that efficiently, and there's a lot of prop wash, which is kind of like drifting in the air when you're turning with the DJI FPV drone. It's not as locked in, whereas the iFlight Nazgul Evoque F5 literally cuts through wind like a hot knife through butter. Like, you are so locked in, it's so responsive, it does literally exactly what you want. Also, I mentioned earlier that I mount a GoPro on top of my DJI FPV drone. That makes this drone infinitely more difficult to fly because the GoPro is sticking up here and it's just a very weird and non-aerodynamic shape, so it really slows down the drone and makes it really bulky and really affects the flyability, but it's something that I put up with because I want the absolute best video quality when I'm recording with either drone. So in terms of flyability and durability, I would say that that category easily goes to the iFlight Nazgul Evoque F5. The final category on these two drones is batteries. And if you're going from the DJI FPV drone to the iFlight Nazgul Evoque F5, or really any traditional FPV drone, you're gonna feel a massive hit in terms of battery life. The DJI FPV drone is capable of doing about 20 minutes on one charge, and the Nazgul and other FPV drones will give you anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. So it's definitely a huge hit in flight time. Also, the DJI FPV drone uses smart batteries, meaning that these are conventional, regular electronic batteries. You can plug them into an outlet and let them charge, and even if you don't use them, you can leave them alone, no problem. They're really easy to use. Whereas traditional FPV drones use LiPo batteries. Now, I can make a whole separate video on LiPo batteries, but basically you need to have some knowledge for how they should charge. You also need a special charger to charge LiPo batteries, and they can also be kind of dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. I actually keep these in a fireproof bag when I'm charging them or when I'm not using them. Also, for LiPo batteries, you have to discharge them, meaning reduce the charge on the battery if you know that you're not going to use them to bring them to a storage voltage. So there's lots to learn when it comes to LiPo batteries, and it's definitely not as easy as just using a smart battery like the DJI FPV drone has. So with the usage of smart batteries over LiPo batteries, the DJI FPV drone definitely takes this category and ties it up against the Nazgul Evoque F5. Now, based on whatever categories are more important to you, you may lean towards one drone more than the other. Now, for me personally, I care mostly about the best camera quality possible and just the ease of use and all the safety features. So when I fly, when I'm traveling, I actually lean more towards the DJI FPV drone just because of all the safety features like return to home. And so I know that if I ever lose my drone or I lose connection when I'm traveling, it's gonna fly back to me. And because I'm strapping the GoPro on it, I know that I'm gonna get really good camera quality. But if I'm flying for a professional client, or if I want to hit gaps and I want the best flying experience and I want to be really locked in, I'm reaching for the Nazgul every single time. Now, I hope that video was really helpful for you guys. It's really meant as a guide for what you should be expecting if you're starting traditional FPV, or if you're switching from the DJI FPV drone to traditional FPV drones, and just making sure you account everything that you may be missing or you may be gaining. So as always, if you guys learned something from this video, then definitely hit that like button. It helps out the video a ton. If you guys are into drones, filmmaking, photography, then definitely subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. That's it for this video though. I'll see you guys in the next one, and until then, keep creating.